Shreveport Police Chief Ben Raymond is here. Hey, Chief Ben, welcome back to Keel. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So here's what I'm thinking. It's like the phone rings and the operator goes, 911, what's your emergency? And somebody says, there's 12 people at the corner of Uri and Bert Coons. What are you going to do about it? Is that kind of stuff actually happening?
It is. I don't know how many people are calling 911 with those complaints. We've set up, we worked with Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers has agreed to field many of those complaints. And then we get direct emails to the general police email, and then phone calls on the non-emergency number that I'm aware of.
The fact that, pardon me, Chief, the fact you use the term Crime Stoppers in reference to groups of 10 or more, that as a lifetime law enforcement officer, that must sound very odd to you.
It does, but this is unprecedented times, and Crime Stoppers agreed that they would be willing to utilize their company, their group, to assist with the pandemic. So although it's not crime in the way you and I would typically interpret crime, it is an important part of our job at this point.
You've got a task force you have set up to address this. Tell us how that came about and what they are doing. Are they proactively going out, or are they reactively going out?
Yeah, so I actually got some information of another agency, and I don't even remember now. It may have been New Orleans that had set up a task force of officers to address these complaints. And this was about a week and a half ago, and at the time it really wasn't a big concern. But as soon as Governor Edwards issued his Proclamation 33 with the stay-at-home order, we recognized that this might start yielding a lot of calls for service. So we took personnel that were otherwise assigned to less essential tasks than patrol. So these are the individuals that are academy instructors, they're recruiters, they work in human resources for the police department. They weren't going to have, we could do without their services in that regard for a couple of weeks. And we assigned them to this task force, make sure they had all the information about what the governor's declaration said and how we were going to enforce it. And we work about 16 hours of every day throughout the day shift and the evening shift. And it's reactive mainly. So as a complaint comes in, those officers go out and address the complaint and make sure that the business or the group is in compliance with the governor's order. A lot of it's educational. It's explaining to people how they're in violation, what they need to do to come back into compliance. And then now we're more transitioning into stricter enforcement. It's been over a week now. People have been warned. We expect that businesses and individuals should know what they can and cannot do.
Chief, is this more businesses that think they're essential, but they really aren't? Or is it businesses, say a restaurant, where maybe there's 10, 12 people inside ordering food? Or is it a combination?
And pardon me, Chief, let me piggyback that. Is it all businesses? Is it my neighbor's having a crawfish boil with 15 people? I want you to do something. Is it stuff like that too?
It is. So it includes businesses. It also includes gatherings at, for example, some neighborhood clubhouses or some membership-only type pool clubs, if you will. So it's the number of complaints we get are vast, and there's a lot of different, situations. Now, understand if you look at the governor's declaration, there are allowances for businesses that you and I might not consider essential, and to a degree, whether a business is essential or not, it can be somewhat subjective. So that's why I'm trying to send the same officers to these calls, because they're getting well versed in what the governor's declaration says and what a critical infrastructure business consists of. And we're kind of developing, we're getting better at understanding exactly what businesses should and should not be operating. And even those that we might not consider essential, there are some allowances for those businesses to operate as long as they're strictly abiding by the governor's declaration on the limits of people allowed in this business and that they're practicing social distancing. So we're enforcing those measures.
Chief, I never in a million years thought I would ever ask you this question. You're talking about forcing businesses to close. In 2020, you're saying you may forcibly tell a business you must close your doors. Did you ever think you and I would ever be talking about this?
Absolutely not. And I hope that if you call me back in 3 weeks, I can tell you we didn't have to close any businesses. That would be, that's the last resort. but there are allowances in statute when you are under an emergency declaration, as the entire state is at this point, for the chief law enforcement officer of a political subdivision, so in this case the city of Shreveport, to enforce measures for the benefit of all, for the health and safety of all, and that includes regulating and closing places of amusement or assembly, is the way it's worded in state law, and specifying ingress and egress of vehicles and people. So again, it's determining where we should have gatherings and where we should not. Don't want to get to that point. I'm really hoping that businesses would just abide by the information we're giving them and then self-police.
So I'm thinking about that Patrick Swayze Roadhouse movie and his line, "Be nice." Is that sort of the prime directive for people in your task force when you're going to these calls? Is be as nice as you can, and if at all possible, you guys break it up so we can leave. We don't really want to do anything. Is that sort of the plan?
Well, we started there. So certainly a week and a half ago when we started this task force, that was kind of the rules. Hey, look, let's go out, let's issue warnings, let's be polite, let's explain what the declaration does and does not allow, let's educate. So when you walk in, you realize the business is not in compliance, explain to them, hey, you're not in compliance, this is what you need to do to come in compliance. There's some large companies we've worked with for over a week to get them down to what we consider to be in compliance with the governor's declaration. But we're kind of moving past that now. So we're at the point now where if you've been warned and we've educated you and you continue to violate it, well, now it's egregious. Now you know that you're violating. It's intentional, and it can be criminal, to be quite honest with you. So we're moving beyond the I'm being polite and moving more into the no, you know better at this point. And so we're going to take enforcement action. And understand, I think it's important for people to understand, a misdemeanor summons is essentially the same thing as a physical arrest. It's like you went down and got booked into the jail, and you're subject to spending some time in jail and paying a fine once the emergency declaration is over. So it's not something that a business owner or the organizer of an event wants to find themselves in that predicament.
A little gray area here because, word on social media is going crazy that you can't have more than 10 people in your business. You can't really be pursuing that in terms of 10 people in the grocery store, 10 people in Walmart. That's not what we're talking about here, correct?
Well, you're correct. And further, if it's an essential business, you don't have the limit on 10 people. Now, it's suggested, and it's certainly you want to practice as much as possible. But like you say, let's just take a large Brookshire's, a large Kroger, a Walmart. You're going to have more than 10 people. You're going to have 10 people just for that business to function. But that's an essential business. The 10 or less is going to refer more to those smaller businesses that there's questionable as to whether they're essential or not. And it certainly should apply to restaurants because restaurants are for carry out, curbside only. So I'm using myself as an example. I went to an area restaurant on Friday evening and ordered some food and walked in to pick up my food and realized that I would have been the 10th or 11th person in that restaurant. So I stayed outside, waited for a couple of people to leave, and then walked in and asked about my food. It's really kind of common sense things like that we all should be able to do, not necessarily put that on the restaurant owners themselves. We as good citizens should be able to make those decisions.